Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain an American science fiction comedy film called Meet Dave. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with a small glowing object in space heading towards Earth. On its way to the planet, it knocks into a satellite and enters the atmosphere. In a New York City apartment, a young boy named Josh Morrison stares through his telescope at the object falling from the sky. The golf ball-sized metal ball flies through Josh's window and lands in his fishbowl. The ball seemingly drains the water, along with the goldfish, as Josh watches in amazement. The movie then fast-forwards to 3 months in the future. A massive fireball makes its way towards the Earth and crashes next to the Statue of Liberty on Liberty Island. When the flames subside, the fireball is revealed to be a man wearing a white suit. He walks awkwardly and takes a ferry back to the city. The man navigates through the city, seemingly amused by humans. While crossing a road, he gets knocked over by a car. The accident twists his foot, but he quickly disappears before the lady driver gets to call an ambulance. In a secluded corner, the man's right ear opens like a gate, and out comes a tiny humanoid alien. The tiny humanoid slides down a rope to the man's legs. He opens a tiny window in the man's leg, revealing a bunch of malfunctioning wires. The tiny humanoid then begins to repair the leg. Another tiny humanoid notes the status of the leg and returns to the brain of the man. It turns out the man is a spaceship controlled by 100 tiny humanoid aliens. Its captain pilots the spaceship from the command deck located in its head, and humanoids controlling one body part each send a report back to the captain. The report reveals that the ship's impact shields were not activated because of the unpredicted nature of the collision, but the ship has survived. However, it will only be able to run at full capacity for the next 48 Earth hours. The ship's tracking systems were also damaged. The captain assembles the crew for a briefing. He reveals that they come from a planet called Nil. Their planet is on the verge of a catastrophic energy crisis, and the ball-like device called Orb, which they sent to the Earth 3 months earlier, was lost. They are here to retrieve and deploy it. Salt from Earth could power planet Nil for ages. The aliens plan to use the orb to take Earth's salt by draining Earth's oceans. The captain has second-in-command named Number 2 and a researcher named Number 3 as advisors by his side. The spaceship looks like a human, but the aliens don't know how to make the ship act like a normal human. They use Google and Yahoo to learn about humans. Meanwhile, the cops are alerted about the mysterious fireball. A superstitious officer named Dooley and his partner begin investigating the matter. They learn from the impression of the man's face in the dirt on the crash site what he looks like and orders his search throughout the city. Elsewhere, Josh notices the human spaceship from his window and alerts his mother Gina, who is the same female driver that knocked it over. Gina rushes downstairs and apologizes to the human ship. The aliens slightly panic over their first verbal encounter with a human. Captain attempts to talk through the ship, but ends up speaking in an extremely high frequency, breaking glasses nearby. After adjusting the bass and frequency, the captain manages to respond that he is okay. Gina sends Josh to school and invites the human spaceship to her home. Captain introduces himself as Dave Ming Chang, based on a quick scan of common Earth names. The crew notices their missing ball in a photograph in Gina's home. Gina reveals the images from Josh's school when Josh took part in a science fair. It turns out, Josh presented the orb as his science project. The crew quickly locate Josh at 729 East 44th Street, and David excuses himself and proceeds to leave. However, he mistakes the closet for the door. He then awkwardly steps out of the closet and leaves through the door. As Dave walks his way through the city to Josh's school, Number 2 gets increasingly agitated by humans' disregard for rule and order. Captain asks an onboard doctor to keep an eye on Number 2 due to his increasing eccentricity. Dave passes through a children's park, and kids mistake him for an ice cream man, so Dave changes his clothes. To pay for the new clothes, he scans money and literally prints it out from his arse. Dave finally arrives at the school, looking for Josh's class. The school principal mistakes him for a substitute teacher and sends him to the class. While teaching, Dave takes Josh outside the classroom and talks to him about the orb. Josh tells him that the ball was taken from him by his bully, Rich, who will be at a street fair tomorrow. The captain decides to go to the fair with Josh the next day, and they then return to Josh's home. As they spend more time with each other, Josh grows to like Dave. He is amazed by Dave's video game playing abilities. When Gina arrives home, she asks Dave if he would like to stay for supper. Number 4 reminds the captain that the longer they stay in their presence, the greater the danger of exposure, but the captain decides to stay. After the supper, Dave asks Gina about the painting on the wall. She reveals she drew the painting while she was in love, and it depicts passionate love. Dave is intrigued and confused. He asks, "How do you know when you feel love?" Gina responds that when you feel love, you don't need to ask that question. Dave is still not sure, but excuses himself to leave for the night. Dave decides to spend the night on a homeless man's spot. The homeless man offers Dave his blanket to keep him warm. Dave is pleasantly puzzled by the man's act of kindness. The aliens realize that humans are more advanced than they originally thought. As the ship retires for the night, the doctor reveals that an atypical behavior is spreading throughout the ship. The captain finds number 3 working late into the night. She reveals that she has discovered an interesting file in the alien database that every human is forced to watch once a year. The file is an iconic American Christmas movie. In the movie, the hero offers to lasso the moon for his love interest. The captain and number 3 find themselves sobbing after watching the movie. They feel drawn towards each other, but suppress their urges and go to bed. The next day, with only 20% power left and police looking for him, Dave goes to the fair with Josh to retrieve the orb. Dave participates in a hot dog eating contest and wins it. He receives a soft toy as a prize and gifts it to Gina. Gina is elated to receive the soft toy. Dave later finds Rich bullying Josh. He lifts the bully upside down as Josh is elated to see Rich learn a lesson. After Dave retrieves the ball, he offers to take Gina and Josh to a restaurant to celebrate Gina's birthday. Number 2 protests and suggests that they start deploying the ball instead. However, the captain argues that Gina and Josh have helped them retrieve the ball, so it's only fair that they return their favor. Number 2 storms out of the control room in protest as Dave takes Gina and Josh to a salsa restaurant where they are having an amazing time. Meanwhile, the police have located Dave and are on their way to apprehend him. After spending so much time on Earth, most of the crew begin to exhibit new feelings, adopting Earth's culture, mannerisms, and general laid-back attitude. Number 3 learns that number 4 has turned his whole room into a dance club. Number 3 then also changes into a salsa dress and goes to the control room to ask the captain to dance with her, but Gina asks him to dance before her. Number 3, hurt, leaves. As they dance, the police arrive and apprehend Dave for questioning. Josh and Gina are puzzled by the arrest. As Officer Dooley interrogates Dave, number 2 decides that the captain and the rest of the crew's changing behavior is unacceptable and gathers an army of aliens for a coup d'etat. Captain, enraged, orders the crew to not comply with number 2. However, realizing they are short on time to rescue their planet Nil, the crew, including number 3, oblige with the new captain. The 2 cops overhear the conversation inside Dave's control room because of an open speaker. Officer Dooley's suspicion of Dave being an alien solidifies, and the 2 cops leave the interrogation room. Number 2 then announces that under his leadership, a new era has begun, and un-Nilian behavior will be punished. Dave, the spaceship, then storms out of the confinement, blasting through the wall. Police officers spray Dave with bullets, but it barely has any impact on him. Seeing the number 2 get out of control, number 17, a young, fun-loving, drunk alien, jumps out of the ship to save himself from his fury. On Dave's way out, number 2 notices Josh and Gina. He berates them for wasting his time with their emotional, pathetic distractions. Finally, he tells Gina that her artwork is pretentious before leaving. Number 2's craziness worries number 3, and she sneaks back into the alien quarters and frees the captain. However, number 2 soon catches up to them and sneezes them out of the spaceship. As the tiny aliens attempt to avoid being trampled on by humans and peed on by dogs, number 3 lets the captain know her displeasure over him choosing to dance with Gina over her. The 2 then use a plastic bag as a hot air balloon to fly towards the spaceship. However, the plastic bag gets stuck in a bus's windshield wiper. They then use the wiper as a launcher to propel themselves on the spaceship and land on Dave's shoe. The captain then apologizes to number 3, telling her that he chose her to accompany him on this mission because of her giant heart and kindness. Without her, he would be nothing. She then asks him why he never spoke to her like this, and the captain responds that he was too Nilian to ever express it. He expresses regret that he should have lassoed the moon for her a long time ago. The duo then makes their way back into the ship. Meanwhile, Dave takes a cab to save his energy to Liberty Island. Josh refuses to believe that it is Dave who is doing these evil things and convinces his mom to follow Dave and help him. Back at the police station, Dooley discovers number 17 in his coffee and interrogates him to find out where Dave is going. At the Liberty Island harbor, as number 2 proceeds to throw the orb into the water to drain the Earth of all its water and salt, Captain overrides his command and stops him. Number 2 is enraged and orders the crew to apprehend the captain, along with number 3. However, the captain tells the rest of the crew that the real captain is in charge again. Wary of number 2's unpredictable and eccentric nature, the crew accept the captain as their leader. Reinstated, he orders number 2 to be stuck in the ship's butt forever. The metal orb, meanwhile, slips out of Dave's hand and rolls into the ocean. The siphoning process starts, and the orb begins to drain the ocean. The captain attempts to retrieve the orb, but is told that they only have enough power left to either retrieve the ball or return home. The captain makes a decision to save the Earth and asks the crew's permission. They all agree, and Dave reroutes all its energy to stop the siphoning process. After retrieving the ball, Dave powers down while Dooley and his partner catch up and point their guns at him. Josh grabs Dooley's taser, which he uses on Dave, recharging him. After Dave gets fully recharged, the captain and number 3 reveal themselves to the police officers, who stand down. The captain says goodbye to Josh and Gina, saying that he now understands love. The captain resolves to find other sources of energy on other planets instead of destroying the Earth. Number 17 is then returned to Dave by Dooley. As Dave proceeds to fly back to his planet, the FBI arrives and traps Dave in a net. While the FBI agents wrestle the body down, Dave's crew evacuates to one of the ship's lifeboat shoes, activates the engines, detaches the shoe, and heads home to Nil, leaving behind both the ship and number 2. While in the lifeboat, the captain asks for number 3's hand in marriage. The movie ends as she accepts and they kiss. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.